Good morning. We'll wait a moment here or two for people to roll in. I see that people are coming online now, and we'll give that a little bit of people a little bit of chance to join us. I know many of you join us from other parts of the country as well, and so hopefully it's warm where you are. Here in the Minneapolis area, we've had a stretch of below 0 days, and today it's supposed to get a little bit warmer, all the way up to, I think, to 12 or 13 degrees. So that's going to feel like a heat wave compared to what we've had. But hopefully you're all staying warm. Have your cup of coffee this morning and getting a little caffeinated and set for this morning. And I'll get started here as people continue to join us. But my name is 𝘼𝙨𝙠 𝘼. I lead Minnesota Crossroads Career Network here in the Minneapolis area. And I hope you are prepared for a great morning. I've got a few things to discuss here initially. Then we have a short video for you that I hope is encouraging and inspiring for you. And then we have Diane Steele, who you came to see this morning, and she is going to be available for any questions you have. I'll kind of moderate that, but looking forward to seeing what kind of questions you have, and hopefully she can address those satisfactorily for you. We have only the ability for you to type questions into the chat box, and so be thinking now already what you want to ask, and then type them in as we get to that portion of the morning here. But hope it's going to be encouraging for you. Let me just jump into something else here real quick. Part of our hope with Crossroads is that along with helping people succeed in their job search, that we also talk about bigger issues and point people to the hope and encouragement of Jesus Christ. There's a verse in the Bible that gets quoted often. It says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And I think too often that's taken out of context. People quote it as if it means that through Christ we can leap tall buildings in a single bound. But then they look at their life or the circumstances they're in and wonder why it's not working for them. They trust God, but don't seem to be accomplishing what they want. And then it feels discouraging. The context of that verse, however, is talking about when we're going through all kinds of difficulties in life, when we don't seem to be able to go on, that we can get through it, not with our own strength, but through the strength that God provides, because he's always there with us when we trust him. He never promises to give us everything we think we want, but he does promise that he'll never leave us and never forsake us, that he'll provide the strength and he'll carry us through those times that when we can't endure on our own. Your current circumstances may be tough, but you can grow and learn and make it through his strength. And my hope that it gives you hope in whatever situation you're in, to trust him, to lean into seeking him, and he will give you the strength and the peace in your circumstances, no matter what they are. Let me open up in a word of prayer, and we'll get into the rest of the content this morning. Lord, I just thank you for this chance to come together, even if it's virtually right now, but we pray that you use this time for your purposes, that everyone walk away with something that's useful and productive for them, that provides encouragement, and most importantly, gives them a sense of how you're acting in their lives. Father, we're grateful for the people that are here, and we just pray that you bless each of them in Jesus' name. Amen. And with that, let me share my screen and have a short video for you. It's with 𝘼𝙨 𝘼𝙨. She is an Olympic gold medalist track star, and she lost her job per se as well. And hopefully you can see some parallels and get some inspiration out of this.
They'd be like, she's really fast, or she runs track. That was always the adjective or the description that came after the introduction of me. I liked being that person. And then all of a sudden it was completely stripped away from me, and I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know, who am I? Every training cycle is about figuring out how can I break my body. Texas sun, 100 degrees. If you put your hands or knees on the track, you'll probably get burned. You're crossing the finish line and your teammates are pulling you off the ground, and then the next rep, you're pulling them off the ground. And then we strength train. A whole bunch of Olympic lifts, power cleans, box jumps, front squats, back squats, sled pulls. We push ourselves to the limit, breaking your body apart and coming back the next day and doing it over and over again. In 2016, when we were at the Olympic Games and we were running the prelim of the women's 4x100 relay, our second to third leg dropped the baton. I was standing there at the anchor leg waiting to receive a baton that was not coming to me. And in that moment, I had that thought of like, wow, I've trained what feels like your whole life for a moment that now seemed to be gone and stripped from me within the blink of an eye. So it takes you to a place of realizing that you have to make what you do worth it. As the story goes, we got to rerun and run by ourselves, and we made the final, and we came away with a gold medal in the 4x100 relay. I was ecstatic. I was on top of the world. But I was coming back to Austin, Texas, knowing that I wanted my life to look different. I didn't want to be the same college girl. I didn't want to keep being around those same group of people. I didn't want to keep partying. I didn't want to continue being that person. But I was also scared. I was scared of feeling alone and lonely and not having anyone and not knowing what I was going to do next. I got invited by my friend, 𝘼𝙪. He'd actually be mad at me for saying friend, by my best friend, 𝘼𝙪, to come to a game night. And I was hesitant at first, and I was like, okay, I'll come to this game night. And I walked into a room full of people who were complete strangers to me, but that was going to become my new spiritual community, a community of people who have very little in common besides our love for game nights and our love for Jesus, who were going to become exactly what I needed. On January 27th, 2018, at the end of a race, I ran into a wall, stopping, and completely ruptured my Achilles tendon. The Achilles is the strongest tendon in the human body, and you need it to do literally everything. Walk, jump, crawl, climb stairs, stand up, sit down. I had it surgically repaired, but I was being told, hey, you might never be the same runner that you were ever again. This may be a career-ending injury for you. I was angry at God, at the sense of, I thought this is what I was supposed to be doing, and if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, then why did you take it away from me? My identity was built in track and field. All of a sudden it was completely stripped away from me, and I didn't know, who am I? I'm so independent and used to doing everything completely on my own, and I was at a point where I had to learn to ask for help. And it was tough, but I was right where I needed to be. For the first time, I realized that I was surrounded by people who believed in me. And not only did they believe in me, they believed that God had a plan for my life and that he was still going to be faithful through it all. I'd never been in a place where every single one of my people that I hung out with and talked to were someone that I could also be like, hey, I need you to pray for this, and they actually would, not just say that they would. And it also made me realize that this is why we're supposed to live our lives together like this, so that when one person in your community is hurting or is fallen or can't fight their battle on their own, that you have 10 or 15 or 5 or 3 or 25 people there who will step up and fight the battle for them that they can't fight for themselves. And that was the beginning of me really picking myself up and putting myself back together. Just because something happened that steered me away from what I thought was the path of least resistance. Doesn't mean that God changed, doesn't mean his plans for my life had changed. It just means that I had to go through a little bit of something first. I've realized that I've been in a tough situation that I didn't think that I could make it out of, or I was so unsure of how I was going to make it out of, and I look back at it and I was like, wow, that was really easy, and it was God's hand in all of it. Prior to my injury, I was always focused on breaking my body down, and now I had to focus on putting my body back together. When I get on the track, it's like, you did not wake up today to be mediocre. That's the talk that I'm giving to myself. You can do this. You only have one more rep. Take it every 50 meters. I wore my I am second bracelet. It would always just be there as like a, you're not doing this for you. This is not your thing that you're doing, and like you have to keep going. I think the sweetest part of community is the ability to be vulnerable with people and let them see your true self and who you really are. And without Jesus Christ, I would not be who I am, I would not be where I am, and I would not be doing what I'm doing. Everything in my life has become solely because of who Jesus is and who he continues to be. My name is 𝘼𝙨𝙠 𝘼 and I am second.
There we go. I don't know about you, but when I saw the stitches on the back of her ankle, I kind of cringed. I'm not good with that stuff. But you know, when we have our entire identity wrapped up in what we do for a living, it falls apart when we aren't doing that for a living anymore. And what we really trust and where we really get our identity is critically important. So encourage you to think about that. And there's always second chances, but I am really glad to be able to introduce Diane Steele. She has done one of these webinars for us before, I think over a year ago now, but it went really well. And so I am really glad to have her back because she knows what she's talking about. She is the founder and CEO of Steele Recruiting, which primarily specializes in senior level executive assistants for companies all over the country, and has become known for being able to do a great job of finding the right people for those right jobs. And in the process, she's had to learn what works and what doesn't in terms of finding those right people and what companies are looking for and what's important for the hiring process, and can relay that to you. So I'll ask an initial question as we get going here of her, but then I really hope that you guys fill us up here with all kinds of questions that are on your mind so that we can address those for you about the hiring process and what is worthwhile focusing on. Diane, looking forward to getting going here. There we go.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Glad you're here. And as I said, I'll ask the questions that people put in, but I'm going to cut out my camera here so that you get center stage, and I'll just be the voice from above. But you know, I think one thing everybody is always thinking about in their job search is, you know, I've got my job history on my resume, but when you're looking for candidates to fill a position and outside of their employment history, obviously that's the first thing you look at. But what are some ways you judge when you're talking to them? How do you judge if someone's a great candidate that you want to go forward with or not?
Thank you, Harry. And good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I hope I'll be able to help get through some questions that you want to ask a recruiter. And again, I do specialize in the senior level executive assistant and chief of staff. However, across many different genres, I think recruiting and hiring is very similar. So please feel free to ask me questions regardless of your background. So really, when you're looking at a candidate's resume, there's a couple of things that I always look for. And first of all, everyone should realize this, that your resume should mirror your LinkedIn profile. I think that's probably one of the things that will raise questions when you're looking at a candidate as to if there's some misalignment between the two. That's where accuracy of dates and positions and alignment with what you're looking for as far as your background, if it's engineering, etc. Are there positions in there that may not be aligned with that engineering background? Like maybe you took a part-time job that was in your LinkedIn profile that doesn't necessarily need to be there if it isn't also listed on your resume. So that's the first thing that I look for, and everyone should realize that your profile, which is on the internet, is very important to be accurate. So all things lined up there. When I'm having a conversation with somebody, I really want to hear about, first of all, why they are interested in the particular position. One can get into a mode of applying for so many jobs that at some point you're receiving interviews, but you don't necessarily do your background or your research on the company. And you are going through the motions of having a conversation with somebody, but not really being emotionally or mentally into the specific company or the job that you're speaking of. So a recruiter can pick up on that pretty quickly. It's the why, because amongst everything else of being a qualified candidate, if you can't say why, and if the recruiter or the company can't feel why you're interested in that company, well, then the passion isn't necessarily there. And the question is, do you really want to work here, or are you just looking for a job? Obviously, when it comes to the construct of a resume, you want to have it without errors. So formatted, I know that I am certainly not a person to format resumes, but I can certainly visualize and give some pointers on that. But find somebody who is a professional writer of resumes that can look through your resume, look for any discrepancies, look for any communication errors that will give you a very nice visual presentation of what I call your marketing piece, which is your resume. So with that, I will be able to see if they can communicate properly through a resume. And one thing I do want to point out too is cover letters. Cover letters are really important. And again, that goes back to the passion of the position and passion of the company. What I have found lately, surprisingly, and I, in fact, am putting out a blog on this here shortly, is the usage of AI with cover letters. And so if we go back to the resume, a lot of times there isn't an opportunity to upload a resume or two documents and a cover letter. So it is okay to merge both of them into one, which I think sometimes can give you an opportunity to stand out a bit more because you're being able to put your voice behind your resume. But I will caution you a bit about leveraging AI too much when writing your cover letters, because now that AI is catching on, hiring managers are getting wise to the fact, like educators are, that who is leveraging AI to write their cover letter completely or percentagely more so than using their own communication through their writing skills. And so with that, I have had hiring managers dismiss candidates, purely amazing candidates, on the pure fact that they leveraged AI to write their cover letters. And in some cases, people use it to write their resumes, which also can be detected. So be very, very careful on how you leverage AI. and make sure that you're still able to communicate through your written and verbal communication when both submitting your resume and when having a conversation. So that being said, I always keep a very open mind with everybody. I don't run resumes through AI. Maybe I should, and maybe I will in the future. I will certainly caution people to do that, especially in the roles that I recruit for, primarily the EA or the chief of staff. But I am open-minded as long as the resume matches the LinkedIn profile and their history is clearly communicated with the duties that they supported in each particular role. Now, how is someone a good candidate? How does somebody get an interview? You really have to be aligned with the job. So an engineer wouldn't necessarily cross over to be an executive assistant without big question marks and being able to match the job description and job responsibilities. So in that case, we wouldn't necessarily get an interview, and that would take a lot in the area of resume and looking at how somebody can make that move. Maybe it's just an objective of tasks that they've done in the past, and someone with a very open mind that would be open to somebody that has never been in the chair before. But going back to the initial question, I know I threw a lot at you here, but in general, again, looking at the alignment of the person to the role, the responsibilities, good job history, which in this question is assumed that history is very good, which means not job hopping. And then also the leveraging of AI to make sure that you understand that your communication skills need to be exercised versus leaning on AI software in order to communicate what you're trying to say. So I think
that makes sense. That's good. I have somebody asking some questions that are right up the middle of your expertise. Someone that's an executive assistant, and she's got a few questions around. One is, and she asks, let me get this right here. Who do you recommend people follow as an executive assistant on LinkedIn who are good people to reach out to? I obviously recommend Diane. She posts good information out there, but who else do you know that is good for people to follow?
Yeah, so I support and I partner with a few very reputable organizations and people across the country in this space. So I would look at IAAP, International Association of Administrative Professionals. They are very established in the United States. They, in my opinion, in the past have had not as good of a support as far as being, new and groovy, but kind of your yesteryear. But they have completely rebranded. Their leadership team is amazing. There's great energy. They've got great annual seminars and places where you can meet up as a team, meeting other EAs, national conferences, and they also have certifications that you can the CAP that you can achieve through their program, which is very, very good, regardless of your level of executive assistant. So that's one I would definitely follow. In fact, there could be chapters where you live, so make sure that you research that. The other would be Joan Burge, who is out of Las Vegas, and she leads her own organization, Administrative Professionals, and she's been around for so many years in this space. She was an EA. She's amazing. She also has training. She has great webinars. She has a monthly or a Monday motivation email that comes out that you can subscribe to. So I very, very much look at these tenured executive assistant support individuals and organizations to follow that will give you the the true and the blue and the exercise and being part of being an executive assistant in the past, they have been in the chairs to be able to articulate what it's like being an EA and giving you the education, the direction that you need. Now, there are others across the country that you can certainly look into. Some people do some coaching and resume writing, and I can certainly follow up with more names, but those are two that really come to mind right now as people that I trust and people that I know that give good content and good leadership when it comes to the executive assistant space.
Terrific. She also asks for pursuing EA roles. Do you think it's worthwhile to have a website with samples of work to be able to show some things they've done?
Oh, I think that's fantastic. As long as it's not proprietary information, but that at this level, at the EA to the CEO where I place people, typically we don't test people because at this point in your career, there is no need. There's a trust factor of you've been in the chair before. But if there were a link or some type of supportive documentation that you could provide during the interview process, or perhaps a link on your resume to that site, I think that's a fantastic idea. Again, that's giving a little bit more information than a typical candidate would, and maybe that's what you need in order to move forward in the interview process.
Good. If combining a resume and a cover letter in a document, do you put the resume first or the cover letter first?
Cover letter.
I would agree.
And can I just say something about cover letters?
Yeah.
More. Make sure that you aren't writing a story. I mean, this isn't the time that you're going to put a 2-page cover letter discussing everything in your career. If you're going to add it into your resume as one attachment, it should be at maximum 3 little paragraphs. In fact, if you go to my website, I have a lot of good content on my blog. There's a blog about cover letters and how to write a cover letter, but make sure it's short and sweet. It can hit the points quickly because you may only get a few seconds from the recruiter. So you want to hit the bullet points and then moving into your resume. So be very careful about not writing a story, but hitting points and making sure that it jumps out on the page.
I completely agree. I think people often write a textbook on their entire career history in a cover letter. It just doesn't get read from that perspective. So short and sweet is always more effective. And in your resume too, big blocks of text, long paragraphs just won't get read. You might say wonderful things in there, but if no one reads it, it doesn't help, right? What's the line between using AI correctly versus too much? It says, I've found that AI is generally too generic and fluffy in what it produces, so I tone it down. AI also rarely inserts achievements and numbers correctly. Agreed. What's your take on that?
Well, I am not an AI expert. I find myself to be a little bit of an early adopter, but not the earliest. And what I find most effective for my purposes is I write and I ask Grammarly to fix some of the grammar. That should do it. If you're a good communicator, then everyone needs their work proofread by somebody. But going into ChatGPT and asking it to write a cover letter for this particular job, putting in the job, you can cut and paste the job description, put it in there, and boom, out comes a cover letter. That's where you get into trouble. So again, sharing personal data, you talked about, or the question was asking about numbers. How much of that information do you want to add into AI and again, I'm speaking of ChatGPT because I'm not sure how Grammarly works, but everything you put into ChatGPT or any other engine AI like that gets saved. So if it's proprietary information to a company, it's going to be there and it's going to stay there. And this is a problem for the future. Eventually, who knows? Everything will be on AI and nothing will be sacred anymore. But just be careful. I would say if you ask AI to do anything, it's only a draft if you start from scratch, and never ever put personal information, proprietary information into the document. You can always add that as a separate. In fact, that's what I do. I put X's through things that I don't want to have shared online, and then I'll fill it in afterwards after I reconstruct and make changes.
Good advice. And so someone else is asking, what do hiring managers look for in a cover letter to know if it was AI assisted? And how do they detect that?
Yeah, there are several programs, and you can go out to Google and Google them. They're AI checkers, and they're free, and they'll take your cover letter and they'll put it through, or parts of it, and they can detect it. It's very simple, very easy. And I wasn't aware necessarily that they are abundant like this, but they will. And again, not all hiring managers or HR individuals, et cetera, have caught on to how to check, but those who have do it consistently. So you're best not to leverage AI again too much, just more of an assistant to your product that you've created on your own.
I agree. I think it can help to, get some initial wording for you if you have trouble coming up with how to write something, but then make it your own. Don't just use what it came up with. Change it. It just can give you some ideas. But one is, I think, mostly just a comment about job hopping, to be careful with that, because consultants, it's a different situation. And so it's just, as long as it's clear on your resume that these were consulting or contract positions, I don't think you have as much to be concerned there. If there were a lot of consulting positions in a row, I think it's better to group those together and under one heading to say consulting roles, and then list various ones. But I think that's valid. Somebody else asks, if you don't have the work experience for the position, but have the passion and desire for the position, do you leverage your gifts and skills in order to be considered? And how do you go about that?
Right. So that would be a skills-based resume. And again, you can Google examples of these types of resumes where you would pull out the particular skill set. Like, again, I'll use executive assistant, where you've got calendaring, meeting planning, travel arrangements, and you would then pull these particular skills from your previous roles, even though you may not have been in that role, but be as clear and concise as possible to explain that, yes, I may not have assisted somebody with extensive international travel experience. However, I personally travel every year with my family, and I create door-to-door itineraries for us, including hotel and events, etc. So you understand the process. Again, you can put personal in there within reason, but that would clearly be able to articulate that you have that skill set and you have actually participated as a person to understand what is good, what is not good, what will work, and how these things move together. And again, specifically talking about travel. So putting those together, you would then be able to create what I call on the top of the resume a professional profile, which that is I call that your elevator speech at the top, which you get about 1 minute to write something, and that's where you'd write the compelling who you are, etc. And your skills based set can be compartmentalized in that top area, and then from there you can go down into the skills and into your job history.
Good. someone else asks a question about resumes, which I always like these because I always joke about the fact that if you show your resume to 10 people, you'll get 11 conflicting opinions about it, right? And but they're asking, I'm looking for a mid-management professional role. I'm getting advice about how long and how much information should be in my resume. What do you think about length and information that should be included, and how do you shorten?
Yeah. So again, I will direct everybody back to my blog of the most read and most popular blog that I wrote is How a Recruiter Reads a Resume. It has all my great tips in there. But my rule of thumb, again, this is just me, less than 10 years, 1 page, more than 10 years, 2 pages. If you go to 2 pages or even 1 page, make sure that you fill it up top to bottom, no white space. That's just my personal thoughts, preference, but 2 pages most. Now, when you move into an executive, that's where you're going to go into 3 and 4 pages, but that's a whole different level. But usually 1 to 2. You will get a 5-second look on the first page if a recruiter is reading and not using a CRM or an applicant tracking system to pull top resumes and stack your rank, of which a recruiter will still view them. So you need to make sure you capture everything on the first page. Bullet pointing. Think in terms of when you're talking to your CEO or a CEO, they want everything in bullets, and that's how you need to fire off your experience and catch the attention of the executive in quick, concise bullet points. But again, 2 pages is really the max. And if you, a couple of things you don't need to include, probably going down a rabbit hole here. You don't need to include references available upon request. That's a given. You can take that line off if you need more space. I always recommend not putting your home address on your resume. It's a safety thing. No one needs to be able to knock on your front door to say hello to you. That is something that can be added into your employee file after you receive an offer and you go through their system to get hired. Obviously, putting in a zip code, a major city such as Minneapolis, even though you live in a suburb with a zip code, is probably more user-friendly with searching. A big metropolis, but then the zip code will take you into a particular neighborhood if they are searching particular neighborhoods. So those are a couple of my quick and easy tips for resumes, but 2 pages maximum for mid-level.
Agreed. And not too dense, right? I mean, if it's just top to bottom blocks of text, it is too hard to read and pick anything out of. Do you have any recommendations of good resume writers? He says, I've tried several and mostly they copied the resume I already wrote. I think, my personal opinion is I'm not opposed to resume writers, but they don't know your career as well as you do. And you're the one that has to be able to defend and talk about your resume effectively. So and I think when you learn how to write it effectively yourself, you're also going to be able to articulate it better in networking and interviews as well. But what's your take, or do you know people that have been really good?
Well, I think again, I think you're correct in the area of people need to understand your genre of where you work, the type of work that you do. I would turn to professional associations in your field and ask a question, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's an association in general that you belong to, and ask for people in your niche if they have a recommendation for somebody that can write a good resume in the engineering field, in the medical field, in the admin field. And from there, ask the people for examples of their work. Talk to somebody who's used their services in the past. Ask for referrals, because resume writers, they charge, I think, somewhere in about $1,000 minimum to, who knows where the cost may go. So it's an investment. You could also try the The unemployment office, of course, they always have resources there that you would be able to probably leverage for free. But again, I would try associations and people within your industry for referrals on people who would be the best to assist you.
I agree. I think recruiters tend to have similar perspectives on resumes, not always, but very often, because they're looking at so many resumes all the time. And so they kind of get a sense of what works for them and what doesn't. I think, just Googling, if you're an accountant, Google accounting resumes, then go over to the images tab and you'll see thousands of resumes. That doesn't mean they're good. There's good and bad, the ugly. But as you start looking at a lot of resumes, you're going to start realizing what you're able to get a lot of information from quickly and not, and can make some good choices there. What's your perspective on the skills section on a resume for keyword matching? And is it too much just single words, or is it kind of a career highlights section better, or what would you prefer?
Well, I think that if you want to make sure that you're hitting everything that you need to hit in your resume, or include rather, first look at the job description or a few of them that you are interested in, and just highlight those words, whatever they might be. And then from there, do a matching. Where do I find it? Control F in your resume. Is it here? Is it included? Because that's what's going to be scraped, is if it's included. Now, if you can't fit it into your resume, into the text of the jobs, then of course you can add a line on the bottom, and you can just list or relist all of the skills, which isn't a bad thing. One thing I really want to stress too is don't assume that people understand what you've done because it's just a given. It's not true. I'll speak about computer skills. A lot of times people leverage a CRM, maybe it's Salesforce, maybe it's something else, and they use it a little bit, but not a lot, but they've used it. Make sure that you include it. Maybe it's something that's always leveraged in a company. Well, they would know that, of course, I use this software because that's part of this, but list it, because there might be a specific type of software that would pull you out of the resume grouping that, yes, Harry knows this software. That's amazing. We need to talk with him first. Even if you attended a training and you never really used it, but you've got that little bit of experience. So make sure that you are very inclusive with all of the software that you have leveraged in the past. And it should be very, very helpful.
Agreed. Kind of addressed a little bit of this earlier, but a change in career. What do you suggest for a cover letter and resume in that situation? And just a quick comment on that for me, because it has to come about really from, in my opinion, conversations you're having with people, not just sending in a resume and cover letter, because you're always being compared to others that have applied that have direct experience for the job that they're applying to. And so you're not just the only candidate in that situation. But how would you address presenting those things?
Change in career, well, happens all the time. So please don't feel like you're alone. And it's a great thing. It's great to do different things at different parts in your life. Minimally, you should, or you need to, depending upon the objectiveness of the recruiter, meet the minimum requirements for the job. So whether or not you had 5 years experience doing what they are seeking at your last job, or 10, you need to usually, as a rule, meet the minimums. If not, you have to find a way to compellingly tell your story that you are competent and you can do a better job than people who do have this minimum requirements. So a little bit trickier. So in that, if you've got the 5 years, but then prior to that, you have done something completely different, then definitely include what your previous skills or positions were, but try to again pull the skills of your current job search switch, career switch into those roles. So highlighting again the travel arrangements or the specific skills to the role, so that they can see that yes, I leveraged those skills, but then I'm fine tuning them now in a specific role that is doing a 180 in my career, but I've been very successful at that.
Good advice. This next question I like, and my views have been kind of changing on this the last couple of years, but what do you think about the open to work banner on LinkedIn?
Hey, why not?
Mhm.
I think if you're out there, be out there. Let people know you're looking. It definitely brings attention to your LinkedIn profile. And I know that there's professionals, Jen Radke, she's been on here before. She talks about your LinkedIn profile, but your LinkedIn profile, the top piece where you've got who you are, that coupled with a very positive opening, this is who I am. I am an extraordinary, problem solver, and just really make it very positive and very energetic. Those coupled together are going to make a very good statement that this person is an amazing person looking for a role, and they've got great energy, and I know what they do because it's specifically stated, I am a et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to catch people's attention. So it is about catching people's attention. Harry, I don't know, what are your thoughts about the banner?
Yeah, I used to tell people that I didn't think it was a good idea, and I've been changing my mind on that here recently. I think one is it's more accepted and understood. Plus, I think just the nature of the job market has changed over the last 10 years, and it's everybody is vulnerable to layoff at any time. It's no indication of whether they were good or not. It was just, that's the circumstances. And so it doesn't have, I think, the same negative connotation that it had at one point years ago.
No, I mean, please don't be embarrassed for putting
No.
on that sign.
Right.
It happens to everybody. For whatever reason, you are unemployed. And two, the number one way to find a job is through networking and referrals. So if somebody just happens to come across your profile, someone you used to work for and you haven't had contact with in many years, they would see, oh, Harry's looking for a job. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I know someone perfect. So why not tell everybody? In fact, go a little bit further, take it into your Facebook page and make sure you tell people on your Facebook, hey, I'm looking for a job. These are your closest friends and family that you know. And it's through referrals that you will most likely get your next opportunity. So please don't be embarrassed. It happens to everybody. You're not alone. And the more you can talk about it and tell people about it, the quicker that you will get an interview and hopefully land the job of your dreams.
Agreed. Any top tips for negotiating salary?
Ooh. Wow. How much time do we have? Another blog I have on this. First of all, depending on what state you live in, I know Minnesota, it is you have to list on a job posting the range of the salary. And you cannot ask the candidate how much they're currently making. If you want to let the recruiter know what you're making, let's just say a job is between 150 and 170 as an example, and you want to let them know you're in a similar job and currently you're at 165. So that information, I think, is a good support that you are definitely worth the top end. And the recruiter can leverage that information, you giving it by your choice, to the company that yes, they are at the top end, and they have some support to it. Again, you don't have to share that information. But if it is listed, then that's what you know the range is. Do companies go over? Sometimes. Do they want to go over? Probably not. Will they? Sometimes. It really depends, but they typically have the pay bands, and they have their ideas of what they want to pay, and they want to stay within that. So when you receive a job offer, two things will happen, which I prefer this first option. They will determine the amount, and they will go in with their best offer. And the company will say, this is our best offer, not leaving room for negotiation. They don't want to go through that. They're not going to shortchange and see, oh, well, maybe they're going to negotiate for an extra couple $1,000s. They're just going to go in, they're going to go in strong, and it's going to be good. And then letting the candidate know that, yes, this is a very strong offer. They came in high, they came in the best that they can do. And then that's where you know that there is no negotiation there, which is fine, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to negotiate with salary. There are so many other things to negotiate. It's, time off. It's, hybrid work schedule. It's, many other things within that you can, usually it's time off, which to some people means a lot more sometimes than money. So don't always be focused on the salary piece. Now, if they don't come in stating this is their highest offer, then 100% absolutely yes. I always say the worst thing that they can say is no. Will they be offended if you ask for more? Well, gosh, I hope not. I mean, for me, I always support people who are strong and ask for more. And even if it's a couple $1,000s a year, if you look at that little extra money and what that means in your retirement account, if they, especially with retirement match, etc., that adds up over the years. So why not? One thing that I have found over the years too is that, and it's getting better, but women aren't as likely to negotiate than men are. And so I'm trying to change that, that everybody should negotiate if, again, they don't get the message that it's the highest, if they feel that they should earn more. Now, how do you know? Again, looking at if it's posted, doing your homework about the job, knowing the market. I mean, that takes a little bit of research, having conversations with other people, knowing what people are getting paid. I recently had a conversation with a very, 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 very talented person who has an enormous job, who is highly underpaid, in my opinion, for what they are doing. And of course, I educated them on this is what the market is. Now, if you can find somebody who will give you that information, who has the intel of what the market truly is, because I don't necessarily trust nor believe what is out there with the information that's shared through the government surveys, and it's, to me, it's less than. So real-time information about what is currently being paid on the market. Again, going to your associations and asking people randomly, looking at surveys within those associations, people that you know, looking at job descriptions and posted salaries that are online, and leveraging that information, because information is power to be able to support your asking for more money. Now, if you ask for more money and they say no, be okay with it. You might have to take a smidgen less than what you were making previously, but if you love the job, be okay with it. because it's only a start. I tell people it's only a start. And give it some time, prove yourself. Sometimes it's more important to love the job where you're at than to be making the highest salary, because the money will come within reason. And I've seen people start and not be so happy, but then 6 months, get a huge raise. A year, they get an amazing raise. So it's a start. It's a start in the door. And again, use other areas of the offer to negotiate if money isn't an option for negotiation, such as your PTO and different things like that.
Good advice. And in the negotiation, don't bluff. Don't give them an ultimatum that I won't take the job or I have another offer when you don't, because if they say no, now you're stuck. And so make sure, and if you have a competing offer, that is a legitimate reason to negotiate, but don't bluff it. Good advice. Someone asks, I've been using 2 resume scanning tools to make sure my resume and the job description are at an 80% match at least. But this is causing a new resume for each job and several hours to edit, which I think is probably excessive for the kind of adjustments you make. What are your recommendations in terms of matching the resume to the job?
Well, that sounds like a lot of work. Unless you are applying for a job that is a lot different from what you are currently doing, you really shouldn't have to rewrite your resume for every job description that you have. Again, if you have your basic, very strong resume, you can do one of two things or both. You can put the keyword line at the bottom of the resume, making sure that you're pulling out the keywords from the job description, or you can add that in bullet points to the cover letter so that you know that you're making, you're hitting all the points. So the cover letters is the one document that will change with every, here I go to another rabbit hole, with every job. So remember that. Do not use one cover letter fits all. So that's where I would probably put your attention, is in that cover letter with clear, concise bullet points matching the job description and all the keywords, and then adding a line at the end, which is easily changeable of your resume.
Yeah, there's a balance here. Let me ask you, Diane, in terms of cover letters, if you're looking at a resume, which I assume you would look at a resume before you read the cover letter, right? Or do you read a cover letter first?
I read the cover letter. Well, again, if it's coming in as a PDF together, I'm going to read the cover letter.
I'm sorry, just a moment. I apologize for that.
Happens.
So my take is most people read the resume first. If they like what they see on the resume, then they decide to read the cover letter if they're inclined to do so. And so if your resume doesn't match to a certain extent, they're not going to bother reading the cover letter because it just doesn't look like this person's a fit. In most cases, I believe that's true. There might be exceptions. And so it's got to be both and you do want to customize your resume, but not to the extent that you have to rewrite it all. You just want to make sure certain keywords or from the job description are evident and jump up on the resume. Does that make sense?
Well, when your resume is going into a database of other applications, the system is stacking and ranking them, usually a green, yellow, red, through the keywords that are on your resume. So again, if you have that cover letter and you've customized it and the key line of keywords, then you will probably rise up to the green because you've spent that extra time of specializing your resume to that particular aligning with the job description. So that's where, again, spending the appropriate time on the cover letter, adding that line is going to help you, whether or not the recruiter is going to open up your resume and read top to bottom of your cover letter, may or may not, they might pull out a few things and go right up into the resume, but at least it'll give you the opportunity to open up the resume and be at the top of the pile versus maybe in middle or the end, the bottom.
Sounds good. What are your feelings about how many years to go back on a resume? I've heard several times 15 years max, but that kind of summarizing here, they have experience from 2005 to 2007 that is relevant for what they're pursuing. Is that a good idea or not to put that on there?
15 is good. I mean, you could go back 20. Any more than 20, I think, is probably a little too much. Now, again, going back and what are you including in your resume? Are you including a job that you had straight out of college that is not applicable to what you're currently seeking? Probably not necessary to add on there. So I think 15 to 20 at max. Again, it's about, if you're going 15 to 20, you have to, in my opinion, fill up 2 pages of a resume top to bottom. So make sure you have enough content in there to fill out the resume with 2 complete pages. So 15 to 20.
Sounds fine. Back to the person about the matching the resume to the jobs, that she mentions that sometimes causes differences between her resume and her LinkedIn profile, which is a red flag. As you mentioned earlier, your resume does need to coincide. It doesn't have to be identical, but it certainly should have similar information, right? And so,
yes,
are there more effective ways to do this? And I think, sometimes for me, I think just it might be moving bullet points around so that the most relevant ones are at the top of the list instead of buried, as a 4th or 5th bullet point, and changing a little bit of wording here and there, but certainly not the substance of the resume. So, what's your take on that?
Again, what needs to match is everything on your LinkedIn profile should really, in my opinion, match or be included in your resume. If it's not applicable, then it's not applicable. Especially timelines. I mean, the biggest mistake is time length in a particular job. If they don't match, that is inaccurate, and that is a big red flag. So if you're in a different industry 20 years ago, it doesn't need to be included on either. And so less is sometimes more, and less can sometimes say more because it gives you a better opportunity to dig deeper into what you have done in the most recent years or aligning to the particular job.
When you're doing a 5-second scan on a resume, when you first get it, do you look at the skills section? What do you look at in that brief period of time?
Okay, this is my Z formation. For me, across the top, name, city, where do you live? Again, metropolis. Is it Minneapolis? Do you live in St. Paul? Do you live in St. Louis? Do you live in where do you live? Might I just say, if you don't live in the same city as where you're applying, but you're interested in the job, because you don't want to hide that you're not there, you should or could add something in the top immediately stating locating to Minneapolis, June of 2025, or willing to relocate. Add that on there. So at least it leaves an open mind of, okay, you are serious about moving. So that's the top. Then you, for me, zip down, and I just skim so fast of where you're currently working and your job title. So be very decisive and articulate about what you do currently. So in this case, executive assistant to the, who did you support? Oh, okay. So I have that. I'm going to zip down to the left corner, and that'll take me down through the history and then across the bottom. So that's my quick 5-second look on a resume. Where you live, will you relocate, current job title, what you've done, and kind of what your history was at the bottom. So have you been doing this similarly for the past few years? Because probably the first page, you're going to have 2 positions listed there. And then flipping over to page 2, if there's a second page.
We have about 10 minutes left and 18 questions here. So we'll kind of race through some of these. Have you been, or someone that's been consulting for quite a bit, if there's gaps between contracts on a resume, does that raise concerns during an initial screening? I agree.
And I think, Carrie, you brought this up in the beginning. So consulting is not a bad thing. Consulting is actually a really good thing and can be fun and interesting and help you determine what you want, help clarify. So what I would do is consult. I would put a big bold on your resume, executive assistant consulting, and then put the dates, years. Don't necessarily need to put months anymore. That's a little bit too much, but that's just my opinion. And then you can just list the jobs underneath that, so they know that yes, there's going to be some downtime when you're on the bench in between jobs. That's okay, but they know that you've been consulting for the past 5 years, and where you've consulted, again, company, what your role was, and the dates, and you can list those. And then maybe you can do a big paragraph underneath that, or even above that. Maybe it might look better above. This is what you've done, some of the things you've done, and start listing as a general paragraph to your consulting experience, and then where you were a consultant and listing the date. So it's very clear, you're a consultant 5 years, this is what your general duties were, and this is where you consulted. Perfectly fine. Then in the paragraph up top of your professional profile, this is your elevator speech, professional, consulting, worked in this industry, and come up with your elevator speech just to give the platform of who you are as a professional, and then go into your resume from there.
Good. Is it worth getting a certified administrative professional, Cap, if you have only 1 year as an executive assistant experience, but many years of relevant transferable skills? Is the certification worthwhile?
Yes. That's for 𝘼𝙬𝙬. And I've taken a better look into what you learn through that course. And even though you think you're at a particular level in a skill or an area, they take it to the next level and they help you fine tune and connect a lot of the dots. And I think you can learn anything and everything from being in groups of people, sharing and fine-tuning skills that are relevant today, because they review their skills and job market needs on an annual basis. So it's keeping up with what's relevant. Also, if you're receiving a certification in whatever background or whatever area that you are as a professional, it shows that you're dedicated in that space. You're a dedicated professional, that you aren't somebody who is just trying this out to see how it's going to work in your life, but you are ready to be a professional. You're going through the certifications and this is your career. So I think it's fantastic. It's an investment. It shows that you're invested. It shows that you are serious about being in the profession and in the role in the long term.
Terrific. I'll summarize this next one, but that their startup closed last week because they lost funding. She hasn't posted anything yet on LinkedIn about looking for work. Do you think an explanation as to why the status change is important when you post? She's been good at her job, but the company closed. Do you need to explain that?
Do you need to explain it? I mean, why not? I think if it happened once, it happens, and as long as the company isn't against, which at this point you don't have a job anyway, and unless they say don't say anything, why not? But I would put it in a positive way. You know, lost unfortunately lost funding, unfortunately lost my position due to. So make it kind of nice, not you know, abruptly something that's harsh. If you have this, not losing funding, but if you lose your job for the past 4 or 5 jobs, then that raises a little bit of a question of, hey, you're maybe not making wise decisions, maybe on where you're choosing to work. Maybe it just, so if there's a pattern of it for every job that you've had, then that's, but for one time or a couple, you should be fine. And people know what's going on in the industry, and like companies would have probably already heard that this is going on. Another thing that you can do too, which is great if you don't want to post it on your profile, is just to put a post out there and say, hey, everybody, unfortunately, you know, our company, you know, lost funding, and we were, you know, so just doing a really nice, sad and unfortunate post. And I am looking for work. I appreciate any referrals. You could help me out. I'm looking for this type of a role here and here. And that should help you, but that way it's not on your profile indefinitely. And if you do, make sure you change it back after you find a job.
Sure. I've had recruiters ask my salary requirements up front. I'm assuming they're talking about external recruiters here, agency recruiters, without even a position. Is it important for recruiters to know this information? And I feel like it's contingent on the requirements of the position, and would not provide that in a situation. So why are they asking up front?
Well,
and have a position.
maybe, right. Well, maybe they don't know the laws. I ask what people's requirements are, not what they're currently making.
Yeah, no, that's what they're asking for. What are your salary requirements? Yeah. They're not asking what you made.
Partly because I like to educate people on the ranges that are current so that they can be aligned, whether they're lower than, but usually because sometimes people are paid way over market, and if they're unemployed and they can't find a job, someone needs to tell them, especially if it's not advertised, what the job market really is. So again, a range is a range, and a range could be 20,000, it could be 30,000, but I think it's just important to educate both ways of where somebody is comfortable and where the current market is, and find a common ground or medium when opportunities do arise. I think, and Harry, you can probably agree with this, one of the worst things that can happen to a recruiter in a situation is you get down the road with somebody and they don't accept an offer because it's not enough money for them, because they wanted more than they particularly said they are interested in within a range. And so in all fairness, is being open and honest with, yes, this is where I'm, you know, looking for in this range within reason, is just really something helpful for a recruiter to understand where you're at, again, within reason, so that you know that you can align them appropriately and educate them whether or not they should probably be asking more, which can actually help somebody too if they are
absolutely
under market.
They have to use their time efficiently. They don't want to be calling you about $90,000 jobs when you're looking for 150. And so it's necessary for them to know that kind of information up front. And as you said, the last thing they want to do is with one of their client companies is to bring a candidate in that looks great, and they get through the process, and then they're nowhere in the same ballpark on salary requirements, and that's a waste of time for everyone. And so it's almost all recruiters are going to need to know some kind of a range from you up front.
Nor do you want to get to the end and be offered something completely lower than what you are used to making, and that's frustrating as well.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time for all these. There's one more, though, that I want to touch on here. It's I was in a job for 2 months, and it wasn't a good fit. Should I leave that job off my resume?
Depends. I mean, it depends on what's below that, where you were, how long you were there. If you don't feel comfortable having it at the top, you can take that and put it at the bottom. It's still on your resume, but it's not at the top. Again, what does it say on your LinkedIn profile? Does it match? I always think honesty is the best policy. But that's a call that you need to make on where you want to put that information. It just really depends. It just depends. That's a tough one. But again, if there's a pattern of that, then that's a problem. But it happens to everybody once in a while. Hopefully not too often.
I agree. I think it's good to put it on there. If you've had a string of those, that's, as you say, that's a problem, and that would raise red flags. I think there's just so much more understanding that people change jobs. There's all kinds of things that happen. I mean, if you have a string of, 6-month or 1-year jobs, then that raises a red flag. But in the 38 years that I've been recruiting, things have kind of turned on their head. It used to be when I started in recruiting that if somebody was less than 8 years in a job, that was a red flag. Are they a job hopper? Yeah. Now it's almost worse in many cases. If somebody's been in a job for 25 or 30 years, then you wonder, can they adapt to a new culture or a new environment or processes? And so it's, and in the past, when I started, that was highly valued. And so it's, things have kind of turned upside down, and changing jobs doesn't have the same connotation in it as it did many years ago.
Yes.
Diane, thank you so much. You've got a lot of questions here and great answers, and I hope it was insightful for people. I want to take just a few minutes here to kind of give an overview of everything else we offer through Crossroads too, so that y'all can get a chance to take advantage of that and get help. I think as much as the content is important, and that we have good strategies and support for your job search on a practical level, I think equally important is having that sense of community and getting plugged in with others in the same boat, and knowing that your challenges aren't unique, or that you're alone in this, and that getting that moral support and help and encouragement is really important. So let me share my screen. I'll just go through a few slides here to give you an overview, as I say, of other things we offer as well. And I got to be done before 9 o'clock. Our networking group starts at 9. Normally, Wes Tang on our team leads that, but he is out of town today, so I'm leading it, and I haven't done it before. So if you're going to join us for networking, I'll explain that in a minute. Give me some grace, because I may screw that up. But in any case, everything that we offer through Crossroads is on our website, mncrossroads.com. You probably had to go there in order to find the information to register for this today. But I encourage you to peruse the rest of the website too. It shows you all the other things, and I'll run through that. But we also have a job board on there. There's a lot of companies in the area here in the Twin Cities that know what we do, know that great people participate, and hire people from Crossroads. So they post positions out there. You can check that out when you apply, or when you reach out to somebody, let them know that you found out about it through Crossroads. We get some great feedback. There's a lot of people that get hired through jobs that are posted on our job board. So check that out regularly. Obviously, we don't have as many postings as Indeed or LinkedIn, but they're good jobs. Kind of our cadence throughout the month is in the area, we have 3 different job search presentations on different topics each month. The first Thursday morning of each month is at Grace Church in Eden Prairie, and that's our biggest event each month. We have a presentation like we had today. Actually, there are usually more presentations than Q&A like this was, but we have that live in person. Then we have our networking group that meets in person from 9 till 10:45. And then following that, we have a couple of things going on available for you. We typically have a micro job fair with a couple of companies that come in and are available to talk to you about jobs that they have open, as well as we have Brad Markwell hosts a Q&A on financial considerations during job transition, which I think, if we all face challenges. Okay, how do we manage this? How do we budget? What do I do with 401ks? And he just hosts a Q&A to help you with some of those things. The second Thursday evening of each month is in Woodbury, and we have another presentation there. And then the third Thursday morning that you're on right now, we have our online webinar. And the advantage of the online webinars like this, as I mentioned, we typically get people from several states around the country. And so I'm always grateful to see that. All the details and topics that are coming up are on the seminars page of our website. On a weekly basis, there's multiple other ways to plug in. We have our Networking with Grace, or our networking group that meets, and it's a great way to share contacts and leads and ideas with each other. And typically Wes Tang on our team leads that, but the first Thursday of each month is in person at Grace Church, and every following Thursday is online through a Zoom meeting. And it's a Zoom meeting where you're all visible and can talk, not just a webinar like this event is. And so the details on the website for the Zoom meetings, you do need to sign up for that separately. And there's a quick registration form on the website for that, and with an explanation of how the process works each week. So you can still join us at 9 o'clock for that. Go to the website, look for the networking group, and you can sign up there and get the Zoom link emailed to you right away. We have one-on-one coaching available. We have over 45 volunteers that can help you. If you sign up for coaching on our website, you can see the details there. One of our volunteers will reach out to you and set up a time for a Zoom meeting or a phone call, and you can talk about anything you want regarding your job search, whether it's your resume or preparing for an interview or do mock interview practice or networking ideas, or just to talk through your situation with somebody that gets it and can offer some advice for you. So feel free to use that anytime and as often as you'd like. I really believe that prayer is worthwhile and makes a huge difference in our lives. And we have a team that loves to pray for you. They pray for the group in general, but if you have a specific prayer request, we have a page for that on our website. You can do that. And we have a team of counselors that if you feel like you need some one-on-one kind of ongoing support for a while because this emotional journey has been too much for you and need some spiritual support, you can see the details and sign up for that too. And we're glad to be able to support in that way. The meat and potatoes of all we offer through Crossroads, though, is our online classes. We have an 8-week online class that covers every aspect of a successful job search. And so we start with attitude and getting in the right frame of mind, but we have a lot of other topics we cover for best practices and discussion among the group. And while I know that the content is really strong and can give you more confidence that you're doing the right things in your job search, I think equally important is just that light accountability and community with other people that are in the same boat with you, and getting encouragement and moral support throughout the week, because this is an emotional journey as much as it is a tactical challenge, right? And so I think more you can build into your week to encourage you and keep you in the right frame of mind and attitude is really important. And so throughout the 8 weeks, we also talk about God's perspective of your job search and your life and your career. And so we have new classes starting each month. We have one starting in a couple of weeks here again. And so you can find the details on the website and register there. We have a LinkedIn group. If you put MN Crossroads Career Network in the search box in LinkedIn, you're going to find actually 2 different things that come up. One is our company page, and I would ask that you follow that, because the more followers we have on LinkedIn to our company page, it will spread the news about Crossroads. But also we have a LinkedIn group, and I encourage you to take part of that. We have approaching 3,000 people now in that group that are people that have been through Crossroads and are just willing to be networking contacts at the organizations they've landed in. And so if you have some companies you're targeting, you can look through the membership of that group and see who might be working at that company and reach out to them for advice and insight and some recommendations on how to best land a job there. So you can be supportive to others after you land as well by just staying in the group and giving others an opportunity to reach out to you as well. So check out the LinkedIn group, and there's all kinds of great information that gets posted in there regularly as well. All right, we have a YouTube channel, and if you put MN Crossroads Career Network in the search box in YouTube, you'll find us. And all of our webinars we had for the last few years during the pandemic, and these once a month webinars we have now are all posted there. And so there's just a ton of topics about job search that can be useful for you. And, you know, on YouTube, you can skip over the parts of listening to me talk, and you can just get to the main speakers and rewind and catch things that you might have missed. So this webinar will also be posted up there before the end of the day today. So take advantage of all the topics that are there, peruse that. One of our other leaders often jokes about curl up with your significant other on a Friday night and watch job search videos. You might want to find something more exciting to do, but there's always that option for you. Get some popcorn. Coming up once a quarter, we do a full day job search workshop. And our next one is a little more than a month off here, Saturday, April 5th. And it's from 8 to 5, a full day of a number of speakers that come in to talk about all kinds of topics in a job search. And you get a lot of information all at once. And it's a great way to kind of boost your job search. If you're early in your job search, it'll give you some great information. If you've been in it for a while, it'll give you some good reminders and new best practices, perhaps, and other things to think about. I think it's a great boost to get you back up on track on your job search again. And so there's a number of people that have been through our workshop multiple times because it just helps boost them in the process. So it's the only thing we charge for. Everything we do is free, except for we do charge $20 for this because we do provide a lunch and a workbook with all the course materials from throughout the day. But if cost would be an issue, we have scholarships available. We don't want anybody to miss this because of the cost. So see the details on the website. You can pre-register there. If cost is an issue, you can email us. The information's on the website, and we want you to attend. So that's coming up Saturday, April 5th. Put it on your calendar. It's really worthwhile. I just want to acknowledge we have over 45 people actually that volunteer for Crossroads in one way or another. I'm grateful for all of them. It enables us to do all the different things we do, and we can't get this done with just a couple people. So I'm grateful for all the people that give of their time. Nobody's getting a paycheck. It's all because they have a heart to help others, and they have expertise that they know what they're talking about. If you don't have a church home and you're here in the Twin Cities, I encourage you to check out either Grace Church in Eden Prairie or Woodbury Lutheran Church that sponsor Crossroads as well. And you can find out the details on the website, and they stream the services online too. Our next event is in person at Grace Church this Thursday morning, March 6th. Coming up, Brad Markwell is going to talk about keys to financial success while navigating unemployment, and how do you look at your budget and your finances and investments differently once you don't have an income coming in. And so he's got some great insight. Encourage you to check that out. You can join us in just a couple of minutes for our networking group if you sign up online, if you haven't already. But thanks for joining us this morning. And I will look forward to seeing you and hopefully meeting you at one of our in-person events. Best wishes.